Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. I'm very happy to bring you my second merry band of panelists. We'll start off with Jennifer Halcame. She's a certified Reiki master teacher, a healer, a life coach, and a psychic intuitive with over 30 years of experience. She is dedicated to helping others heal and align with their true path. Next, we have Canadian Spinja. She has been on her awakening journey since 2007. She's been on a quest for truth and healing ever since. And she plans to expand her podcast and start her own textile business. Spinja fell in love with weaving when she was 6 and bought her first spinning wheel in 2011, and then entered the Fiber Arts program at Ontario Handweavers and completed the Spinner's Certificate Program Level 5 in 2013. In 2024, she created her YouTube channel, hoping to empower and inspire people to do things for themselves, share alternative healing modalities, save money, and embrace the feeling of creating. And last but not least is Don Rogers. In September of 2023, Don Rogers started having a succession of nightmares and memories of intergalactic warfare. Some of these events seem to be happening in the future. Thankfully, his partner, Canadian Spinja, had been on a podcast information deep dive into the spiritual and paranormal and convinced Don to listen to a podcast about the super space program, and it immediately resonated with him. After he was put into hypnotic regression, everything started to make sense, and he created his own YouTube channel to offer his insights to other newly awakened people. Now, all of the links are below in the description box, so I encourage you all to check out my guests, subscribe to their channels, assuming they have them. And I shouldn't say it that way. I'm sorry. I know Dawn and Canadian Spinja have channels, but you feel free to also reach out to Jennifer if you want to get some amazing advice and insights into your own life. Now, today is part one of the three-part series called Harness the Simulation. And today we'll answer the question, what is the simulation? So I'll just start by giving you my 2 cents. It's my understanding that we actually live in an emergent reality. And what I mean by that is if you look at your shadow, when you're outside and you're walking in the sun shining and you look down and you see your shadow is actually a two-dimensional image that emerges from you being the three-dimensional being. But there's a lot of evidence out there that me, the three-dimensional being, is actually emergent from fourth or fifth or other dimensional realities. What I also find really interesting is that there have been physicists, theorists, scientists, mathematicians, and they've all tried to disprove the simulation theory, and they can't, and they become believers. So we've got lots of information today on how we understand the simulation. And of course, none of us has the absolute truth with a capital T. We're giving our ideas, our impressions, our working theories on what the simulation actually might be. And we're sharing that with you, the viewers and the listeners. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Don Rogers, because Don, I know you've been really busy doing a lot of research on this subject. It's a fascinating subject. Once your brain starts to explode, you just can't seem to stop learning about it, and it's very cool. So how about if you share with us basically, what do you think the simulation is? Do you think we're living in a simulation?
This is actually really interesting because, like everybody else, I'd already seen the movies, and it's something like, hey, that could be real, right? But you never put a lot of thought of it and into it. But when you asked me the question for this panel, something triggered in my brain, and it was literally like I've been doing a lot of neuroediting, hypnosis, and like meditation and those type of things, and it seems to be like when I get something locked in my brain actually breaks it down to the most logical explanation. Skip to the next day, I woke up and had this weird gnosis of what I wanted to look up, the entire theory that I had come up with overnight, and where to look for it. And what I have basically put together in my own theory is that if this is a simulation, if you look at the Earth or the universe actually as an infinite plane, that infinite plane is populated by sentient ions, molecules, and quarks and atoms, and all of these things. What we learned from the double slit experiment is that once you observe a molecule, it changes its behavior. Therefore, what I'm saying here is that we project our consciousness from a higher density, as you were saying, onto this infinite plane of existence to create our own reality. So, what I figured out is okay, that's wonderful. How do you do this? If you're going to have a simulation that big, you need a simulator that big. Well, if you take away the simulator and you populate the plane with frequency emitting bioorganisms that can create in real time because they emit the frequency to affect the ions in their reality, then the simulation becomes self-evolving. We project everything throughout the entirety time of the universe that's ever existed through the consciousness that we receive from a higher plane. Without breaking anybody's head further than that, I think that's about the easiest way I can explain. I'll actually even I'll give Karen the link to my Dropbox and the whole paper on it, but that's what I've figured out.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So yeah, and so those self-aware ions could be, would you agree or disagree that that could be called consciousness?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something Frank Castle and I spoke about after because I had showed him my paper. Is he's like, yes, you're absolutely right. Oh, I kind of skipped over something. Um, the reason I came up with that we could possibly be the things that are emanating the frequency is there has been a study since the 1950s about actual physical storage of data on DNA, right? That's the whole history project that anybody can read in the paper. I've given all my sources, but what is it is figured out is the average human stores enough DNA to store 13.5 roughly billion years of information. The reason that's relevant is that is the approximate age of the universe as we know it. So we are literally creating in real time the entirety of the universe, and each one of us has the entire history of the universe stored in all of our molecules. That's where Frank corrected me.
Cool. How cool is that? So Canadian Spinja, do you have anything you want to add? What do you think? Do you think we're living in a simulation, and what do you think the simulation is?
Well, I've kind of gone in a different direction, and I'll own the part where I haven't had the opportunity to research the way Dawn has. So this is from here, and like things that I've just put together. So the simulation, I feel like it's different than the Matrix. I feel like the simulation. So like we're talking like when we're talking about the double slit experiment and everything, absolutely legit. I feel that that is part of the package that we all signed up for. I feel like the simulation is actually an overlay, and it's been an experiment um for the controllers, whatever you want to call them, to find out information. And so basically I feel like like humanity came here, we came, like to visit and live our experiences and do everything and all that stuff. And then it was hijacked, which like a lot of people agree with that as well. And that's basically what's happening. I feel the simulation part of things is that they have been experimenting with us in regards to finding out frequencies and things like that. um, and I actually I came up with this morning where I feel like they were studying us, and that's how you can explain like the golden ratio, like how like how you get the numbers and things like that. So source, like the original creator, created everything here, and of course it was perfect, of course it was balanced. And so these other um beings or whatever studied that, and then they've been studying us, and ultimately it's um they were running all of these different simulations to see how we work, and basically how they can harness us and how they can round us up into the 15-minute cities, so ultimately we end up being batteries and their takeover is complete. That's their plan. And that's just that's my thoughts on it, is that yes, there is a simulation. We didn't sign up for it though. It's been hijacked.
So what I think I'm hearing you say, please correct me if I'm wrong, that if we are living in a simulation that was created by, let's just say, we'll use the word God for lack of a better term right now, but then there's a false overlay that is like the Matrix that somebody or something has created to suppress us, harness our powers, keep us from being perhaps all that we can be. I don't know. Am I close in understanding what you're saying?
That's yeah, and I think it's all been an exercise to find out how they can get the most energy from us, like how we can be of the most use to them with, like, while keeping us alive, but the bare minimum kind of thing, like
Mm-hmm.
they ultimately just want us to be batteries.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts you want to share?
I actually do agree with a lot of that. What I feel personally is that, yes, there was an original Matrix, the original programming, and then some other entity came in and hijacked it to see if they could use us for food. Um, but I do agree that there's an original and then there's a corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it does feel like a lot of us did sign up to kind of come down here and try and fix things or decide whether or not there should be a reset in things. Um, I think that we do store all of that information, um, not in our DNA, and that there are a lot more DNA strands than two, and that we've sort of been tempered down to be able to function in this 3D reality. Um, but that it is an avatar of sorts, and that our higher selves are the ones that come through as our guides and give us the sort of information we need to get where we're supposed to be in our lives. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. You know, I always refer to us being the collective of humans on Earth that I believe chose to be here at this time, because we're basically trying to initiate a new timeline. And I call us quantum mechanics. Like if your car is broken, you take it to an automotive mechanic to get it fixed. Well, we're fixing the timeline. We're busting open the matrix. We're telling our truths and speaking our truths. And in that way, we're quantum mechanics because we're actually repairing the quantum. And I think that's a very important job. And you know, we don't seem to get fame or fortune from it if we're sincere and don't sell out. But at the same time, there's a terrific feeling of satisfaction from doing this kind of work. So I would agree with all of you and everything that you guys have said. Now, I just want to introduce a little bit of a slant or, oh, go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say, Jennifer just kind of reminded me of something that has crossed my mind, and I'm sure it might go with the conversation, is that when she's talking about how we've been dialed back, I actually believe that we were born with 10 senses, and the other five are our clairs. And those
Mm-hmm.
would have been stripped away and pulled out of our DNA. And because of what Spin's talking about, that societal overlay makes us more compliant and reliant on the system where we don't need to, and we haven't for thousands of years as they've implemented this system of control, right? We stop being self-reliant and creator beings and just like, oh, look, there's daddy's tit. I'm going to go eat at the store instead of growing my own food. we gave them up through complacency, and they tricked us into doing it over the last several thousand years.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you. So, and I think there's going to be two more parts to this series, and they're going to air on the third Wednesday of July and then August. And the next segment, what we're going to talk about is basically how we navigate within the construct or the simulation. Now, you know, it can either be, well, what I call the construct as being different than the simulation, much more similar to the way Canadian Spinja outlined it, where I think the simulation is the whole big picture, the whole phenomenon, but the construct can also be called the matrix, which is the false reality that we've been brainwashed and programmed and through fear and sheer brutality forced to suppress our great power as creator beings. And I want that to come out in the future, more in the future sessions, and in the last, especially in the last of the three parts. But for today, I'm trying to keep it contained, but my mind is all over the place. I wanted to speak a little bit more about the double slit experiment, which most people are familiar with. If you're not, do some research. It's not hard to find. And in it, basically what they did was they shot some, I think, photons through double slit, and it created an interference pattern because the photons came across as waves. But then when they put an observer watching the process, the photons or the ions, sorry, I'm not a scientist, they snapped into particles and they became particles. So that was really interesting because the response from what we would consider inorganic or electronic or energetic material obviously showed signs of consciousness. But then to sort of blow me away a little further, they found out that if they put the camera or the observer closer to where it hits the screen, it starts off as a wave pattern, it gets observed, it turns into particles, but not just when it hits the screen, the particles right back to where they come out of the machine that's shooting them all become particles. So that means that the particles not only have consciousness, they have control over time because they go back in time in order to change the outcome, which means that you know, when we see starlight that's coming from, I don't know exactly, but say just theoretical, because I'm not a scientist, you know, a billion light years away, and we perceive it as something or being one way, it changes all the way back millions of years to the source. So there actually isn't time or space. And I'm not trying to be a big know-it-all here. I'm just sort of laying this out because it's good fodder for more discussion. So we must be incredibly powerful that the way we observe things not just changes how it is, but we change it back in time to the source. And to me, that just gives me absolute friggin' goosebumps to think about that. But it also explains why, because I don't think there's a universal simulation or reality, but it explains why people who absolutely believe in the flat earth theory see all the evidence they need to support that. People who believe in giants can see all the stuff there is to support that. And it, for me, makes me more respectful of other people's beliefs because I understand that we're all creator beings and our observations are super important. And that's why it's so goddamn important to break free from the matrix. Anyway, I'll shut up and zip it. Go ahead, Dawn. You want to take it away from there?
Yeah, it's interesting just to add further to what you were saying. That experiment, they even went further with it. It didn't even always require a human to observe the ions. They could leave the room, and if the ions realized this is what makes them sentient, right? It's not just a physicality interacting and interfering with something in the air. They took the human element out of it and allowed it just to be observed by a lens, and the ions still acted in sentient fashion because they realized they were being observed. Now, when you spread that out even on a bigger macro scale, is we're made of those. I'm not a solid. The thing in front of me is not a solid. This window is not a solid. They're just ions. They're bubbles that all resonate at the same frequency. So every part of you is made of an intelligent molecule. That is why we can emanate frequency out into our reality and create.
Yeah, well said. Spin, what's your take on all that?
Yeah. I don't know. This is pretty deep. It's got me curious though. Like I don't really have anything to add other than just an observation. There's been times where we've back when our son was going to school in Airdrie, he would come into work with me, and we'd 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 be driving in really early in the morning, and you couldn't see the mountains. And normally, like, you should be able to see them. And so we were driving along, and he was looking out the window, and he's like, they look like they're rendering. And as we drive along, and it's not the first time that, like, there were multiple occasions where he's like, oh, the mountains are rendering again. And it just has me scratching my head, like, are they?
Yeah, Jennifer, what do you want to add to the mix?
I've always felt that we self-actualize, which is how we create. And it makes sense that the down to our cellular level, that would be the way that we create our world around us. And you know, a lot of people look at me and go, I didn't ask for that. And my response is, but your subconscious did. So about 80% of what creates the world around us is subconscious. But I do believe we completely self-actualize in this world. So it is what you want it to be on some level.
Yeah, that's a really tough lesson for a lot of us. I think we've all
Mm.
had to go through that to get where we are now.
Mm.
And, sometimes we have had some terrible childhood experiences, some traumas, and that's why I think it's important for us to deal with our shit, because when we deal with
Mhm.
it, what happens is our perception shifts
Mhm.
and we start to see it differently. And when we start to see it differently and generally have some compassion for even abusers, because we don't know what they've been through and they're stuck in the matrix. How horrible. And so I'm not saying it's right, it's not. I mean, we should all be treated with love and tenderness and dignity and all that kind of stuff. But most of us, had periods where we weren't. And so that's why I think it's so important to have faith, because what I believe faith is the assured expectation of things that are not yet materialized, and when I deal with my stuff and my baggage, it frees me up to start being creative again. And also I had to get to a point where I believed I was worthy. I was worthy of good housing and decent friendships and people I could trust. I was worthy of having a healthy body. I was worthy, I'm worthy. And that took some work for me. But I think as to what you said, Jennifer, I think that's also why we're here. We've chosen to come and do this work. And I also believe that when we do this work, it does have what they call retrocausality. It goes back in time and it changes the karma or the karmic debt or the dysfunction of generations before us. Wow, that's intense, and to do that we have to stay focused. We got to be amazingly courageous. and but life is just, I don't know, so much richer since my head exploded and I realized that there's so much more than what I was taught is real. Does anybody else want to add to that, or you could take it in a different direction? It's all good.
Um, Actually, on that, right before we were coming on, I was talking to Spin on the phone while she was driving home, and we were getting ready, and I was getting her food because she had to eat because she just finished work, and then this. We were talking, and it was a moment of realization that we had during the discussion because we were very excited to meet Jennifer and do another show with Karen, and all of this is happening, and it's amazing to talk to people that understand all this. And we were kind of like appreciation bombing each other. And I was like, do you realize though that every screwed up, effed up thing that has ever happened to us had to happen for us to get right here?
Here. Yeah.
And that is a big realization. You're like, my life, my life. But then when you see one fun, spectacular moment, you're like, wait, I had to go through all that crap to get, oh, got it.
Yeah, and none of us, what I love about this panel is none of us are scientists and physicists and mathematicians. And well, I'm sure you're all very intelligent. Please don't take that the wrong way. But we're pretty much ordinary people who have stumbled across similar truths. And that seems to add power to the whole concept and the whole direction of where we're going, which makes it very exciting for me. And it's important, I think. Sometimes, I have sort of experts on the show, but lots of times I have ordinary people because this whole movement is from ordinary people coming together.
And what Dawn said in regards to like the decisions and things like that, that also ties into what I've been sniffing lately, and I think I've mentioned it to you, Karen. I've been doing more digging in regards to the law of attraction.
Yes,
And
yes. Tell us what you've learned.
oh my goodness, like I'm even seeing how all of this fits in to the simulation theory. Oh, look at Don sitting back here. He's heard all of this. um so I've been listening to Abraham Hicks, and I mean it all started with The Secret, which I think is um quite a common starting place for people just starting their awakening, and like trying to figure out like what the hell is going on here. And so for me, like I went baby steps. So I did The Secret and then learned about Abraham Hicks, and I've returned because there was just some missing things. And now that like I've been a little bit further on my healing journey, um things are starting to make more sense now. However, the other thing that I'm noticing that's missing with Abraham, and I think maybe they're trying to keep their material still a little bit mainstream, um but I see how even the law of attraction has been abused, and how it's advantageous to those running the simulation, and how they've taken it and just ran with it. And so what I'm understanding is that the universe that we're in is an inclusive universe. So if you want it and you put it out there, the law of attraction is going to bring it into you. However, if you don't want it, but you're still focusing on it, you're still talking about it, the law of attraction is still going to bring it into you. So that's why, and like this is what Dawn and I are working on right now, is shifting how we talk about money and abundance and things like that. And it's happening. It's things are slowly. And so this is where it comes in, with generational trauma and abuse. Like that's how all it takes is like one generation to screw us all up. And so right out of the gate, many of us have not even had the opportunity, because I know my parents didn't know about the law of attraction, my grandparents didn't know about the law of attraction. And so basically we and then the powers that want to be use that to their advantage with their implied consent. And so basically, if you don't know what you think about, you bring about, then you're running on autopilot. And so that means that what you're going to experience is, like what's being programmed by your family, your teachers, like the people that are around you. And then if that doesn't have any impact, look at the news. Look at everything that's going on in society right now. And so you don't, for the most part, we're running all over the place. We don't even get the opportunity to think and start asking questions, let alone figure out how to use the law of attraction to our advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Hi, guys. Break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, it seems.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just thinking, it seems to be the problem that a lot of people are having with The Secret is that it doesn't actually tell you the secret. It the law of attraction works, like I said, 80% off of your subconscious. So if you're not doing your inner healing work, if you're not actively trying to bring up those things, those blocks, those traumas, and get rid of those filters, it doesn't really matter what you send out for. You're still going to get what your subconscious thinks you deserve. So the key being for me, how I turned that around was to start being grateful for things I do not have yet. So, for example, I started experimenting with it and trying to get a good night's sleep, because that is a very difficult thing for me to do. And I started every night before I would go to bed. I would say, thank you for giving me a good night's sleep last night. And thank you for the good night's sleep I'll have tonight. Whether or not it's true is irrelevant. But just being grateful for things I have not had yet, as if I already did. And that changed my subconscious output and started drawing to me those things that I was grateful for, regardless of whether or not I had them. And I think that's a lot of sort of, I found out that if you play with the universe, it will play back with you. And so really the key is digging into your subconscious. Why am I drawing these things to me? What energy frequency am I at in my beliefs that's not bringing money to me, or making me so I can't sleep at night, or making it so I don't have friends in my life, or whatever it is that you may want. Um, but really pinpointing that this is not necessarily all a conscious thing until we bring the subconscious into the consciousness, and then we can make those choices as conscious choices. But until then, just being grateful for things you don't have yet is how you bring them to you, for sure.
Oh, I would agree. And gratitude really boosts your frequency. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk. I don't want to take it off subject too much, but just throw another element in here for us to consider is if you, I don't know if the listeners and the viewers have done any research, or the panel, on the Gateway program. I highly recommend it. So long story short, this is government secret documents that have been leaked. Well, they're more common now, but it's an understanding of how the simulation works. And so basically, when we and I guess you could take some of what you said, Jennifer. Once we, calm ourselves, and we heal the subconscious, once we become grateful, once we're able to relax, especially once we realize how much power we have. Oh my God, you could really relax, eh? And once we start to relax, then we start to have interdimensional experiences. Now, this is just the way they explain it when you learn about the Gateway program. But whether you are doing it through deep relaxation, whether you're doing it because your subconscious ready during your sleep, whether you're doing it while you're awake, whether you're doing it on psychedelics, regardless of how you do it, when we get to a certain state of consciousness, the oscillations in the energy that we're producing becomes very, very short. And when it gets to below what they call the Planck length, which is a term from quantum mechanics, don't worry if you don't understand it too much. But when it becomes short enough, we pop out of this reality and we pop into a reality that doesn't have time or space. Now, I know Dawn's had secret space program, many interdimensional experiences. I myself have many transdimensional experiences. I'm working on my book right now. I'm really excited. I'm making good progress on it. And it's my adventures aboard a big ship that resides in interdimensional space. And how is this possible? Well, it's possible because once we blink out of or click out of this three-dimensional reality, and it has to do with consciousness and the state of our personal frequency, we are able to go anywhere and do anything, which means because we're observing it, as we've already discussed from the double slit experiment, those things are real. And so I don't know if I'm creating that reality or whether that reality exists because I'm observing it. I don't know, but I know it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I bring back with me how I'm able to improve and be more of who I am when I come back into the three-dimensional. And I think you could say the same thing for psychedelics or other methods that people use to have trans-dimensional travel outside of the three-dimensional. And what I also love about finding out about that is that it validates our experience. We're not a bunch of tinfoil hat wearers, although we could wear tinfoil hats for fun if we want. But do you know what I'm saying? It opens up this incredible I don't know, reality that's to be explored and created in. And oh my God, there's nothing like it. And just one other thing I want to throw into the mix, and that is we need to spend time with ourselves in order to sort ourselves out and in order to be able to discover this stuff and be able to do it. And most people are distracted. I know I have a hard time sometimes putting my phone down. I go to check my notifications. The next thing I know, I've been flipping through Facebook for half an hour, you know? So I'm not saying that I'm always so perfect, but I'm just saying there's so many distractions, watching the news, you know, all kinds of stuff that we can get caught up in. And it isn't until we take the bull by the horns or the self-discipline to spend time with self and inner world discovery that we're actually, sorry, I rambled long enough about this. I get on a roll. So so I'll just turn it back over to the group and see if you folks have any thoughts on any of that. I know Don, you're definitely a transdimensional traveler.
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, because there's something that a lot of people don't know. I've said it on a few shows. You can go to CIA Reading Room and just Google it out, and you can pop onto all of the files that she's talking about. Everything that's declassed is open public information that anybody can access. It's literally just having the jam to type CIA Reading Room into your address bar, and you can see exactly what Karen's talking about. And on top of what Spin was saying, I think what I wanted to point out too is, like, she alluded to the fact that they have used our ability to be creator beings to keep us stuck in the matrix with shitty news. Sorry, with news reports, with sad stories, with all of this depressing, low vibrational crap that we just keep creating ourselves in a loop. Because you tell me a sad story that you heard on, I have a buddy that is horrendous for this. Every day I have to put my phone upside down because he's so damn depressing. If you get into somebody else's energy loop, they can keep you trapped in it. And that's what they've done to society as a whole. Over again, it's the years of deprogramming. They know we can create. Their CIA files on it. They've taught us to create the lowest resonant existence for ourselves that we possibly can, that's the least inconvenient to them.
Yep.
Sorry, that squirrel.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I was just leaving a little space for our brains to catch up because it's fairly a fairly deep subject, especially to people that, you know, that this is all new to. And I'm just wondering if Spin or Jennifer, if you have anything you want to throw in the mix there.
Well, I think Don's right. It is well known that we can do this. Some of us are just new to this and we're just figuring it out. And then there are those of us who were born able to do this and unprogrammable. Um, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where we didn't have TV, we didn't have distractions, and I just never bought into it. Uh, but I agree, they are using this. Of course, they're using it against us to try and keep us in this third dimensional reality because it serves them. But I don't think it's working. It feels as though more people are breaking out of this little hamster wheel that they've got us on and realizing that, hey, I don't have to live this way. I don't want to live this way. And yeah, I think learning how to come from a place of love as opposed to fear is very helpful in that, because when you approach multidimensional travel and experiences, if you do it from fear, you don't get there. But if you do it from a place of love and curiosity and joy, then you get to travel the universe. It's this amazing thing to me that I wish I could just pass out to everyone, you know. But you know, some people use psychedelics to jumpstart that process. Some can do it simply by praying to God. Um, but I think it's important that we search for that because we are evolving as a species and we need to embrace our higher, more creative selves.
I totally agree. Those who have what I'm going to call perceived power, because it's not legitimate power, and they want us all to be afraid, and they want us to all think that they have all this power. And it's like the emperor has no clothes. I'm laughing, going, "You've got to be kidding me."
Yeah.
Like, I will not give them that power that they claim that they have. And it's so grandiose and stupid. You get to the point where you're no longer afraid, and then you laugh at it. You just laugh at
Yeah.
it because you cannot take it seriously. And when we take the power that we were giving to them back to ourselves, there's nothing we can't do. We can bring, it's my firm belief that we can bring paradise back to planet Earth. Now, paradise might look a little different for you, Jennifer, or for you, Spin, or for you, Dawn, than maybe what I'm envisioning. But we still can, it's a great common ground. And when you base that, like what you said, Jennifer, on love and joy and peace, and we can do this, but we need to take our power back. And I've really started limiting myself as to how much alt news I will consume. Now, I don't watch mainstream news because it's so ridiculous. It's insulting to my intelligence, to be honest. But then I go to alt news, and then I go, no, this makes me feel not good in my tummy either, And I've really limited, and it's not like, I don't think the world will go to hell in a handbasket if I withdraw my consciousness from it. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I think that the planet and all the systems will start to heal when I stop feeding into it the fear and the unease and all of that kind of stuff, right? So I pay attention to my own little world, and it's really lovely, and I'm really happy. And, I can spend the afternoon out on a lawn chair just being so aware of the different cheeky little groups of squirrels and birds and their interaction with the butterflies. And it's just this whole thing going on. And I go, yeah, I want more of this. I want more of this in my life.
I think that's key. I think it's important. It's kind of funny. Dawn and I were just talking about an episode of The Simpsons. Um, it's where Bart and Lisa they're confronted. There's a bunch of commercial logos that came alive, and so like Fat Boy is like stomping through the city and all that. And so how they were able to shut them down was to not look at them. And so there's just this little jingle, and I remember this all these years later. Just don't look, just don't look. And that's like totally where I am right now, like with the news and stuff. I just pay just enough attention to know where not to be. And I'll be honest, I I like listen and watch podcasts, but it's actually Lindsay Sharman's winning report where I get a majority of how I know what's going on in my outside world here.
Love Lindsay. She's beautiful.
Yeah. I also have a little jingle I sing to myself whenever I start worrying, or my mind is going to a place where it makes my body not feel good. I just start singing, Karen, don't feed the archons. Don't feed the archons. Not today. You're not feeding off me today. And of course, for those of you who don't know, that's a reference to the energetic beings that feed off of our negative emotions and our fears and stuff, right? Just don't feed them. Nope, not going to feed them. Nope, not going to feed them. And interesting how it evaporates and that whole energy leaves me alone. And I get bothered less and less and less as years go by. Whereas I used to spend all my time inadvertently feeding the archons. And boy, was I sad all the time and crying and depressed. I'm not saying if you're going through those things, that might be part of your growth cycle. So I'm not trying to say that you're necessarily consciously feeding the archons, but I just stopped feeding them. And it reminds me, there's a Bible scripture. Now, I'm not a religious person. I don't actually give a lot of faith to everything written in the Bible, but there's a little scripture in there that says, if you resist the devil, he flees from you. And it's sort of the same thing. It's another way of saying the same thing. Just refuse to feed it. And it takes a bit of practice, because then you slip back into it, and they're sneaky little bastards, boy, to get you feeling bad. So, and I guess too, also, we're not supposed to feel all up and happy all the time, but still, life can be pretty nice, if we just take a bit of our power back. I think that's really what I'm trying to say, is within the simulation, recognize the great power we have and take some of that back. And oh my God, then we start creating, and then our whole world starts to shift. And then the simulation, I think, responds and actually starts to give us a different world. So I think we got this. We just gotta keep at it and be, I think, unity minded as well, because we're really powerful when we come together.
I feel like things have backed off for Dawn and I, and like we've been doing some shifting. So to the viewers and listeners, I don't know if you know, Karen did her quantum health transformation program 3.0, and Dawn and I, along with our son Ray, took part in the workshop part of things. And that's helped us just expand and reflect on, like the areas that we need to fix, like heal and all that stuff. And it's changed things for the family. And it just seems, I don't believe in coincidences. Like, this kind of laid the foundation and got us all asking questions and looking at ourselves, and things have been progressing in a really good way. Even just, like, I've changed the way I've looked at things in regards to the financial things, because like this past winter we got hit with quite a few unexpected really high bills. And like my natural reaction was to freak out, because that's what you do. How the hell are you going to pay them when you're already living hand to mouth? And the one of the things, so we bring in the nubby ball. That helped me change my perspective. And again, I highly encourage people, check this out. When you talk about the nubby ball, it's helpful. That helped me change my perspective. And it's like, okay, so I'm sitting here and I have these bills, and what do I do about it? Wait a minute, I'm sitting at my sewing machine, I'm working, I'm doing something about it. And so I've just gotten to the point now. It's like, okay, if I'm sitting at my sewing machine, I'm putting in all the effort that I can. I'm giving my max. So screw you. my bills will get paid when they get paid, because I'm doing something about it. But just that shifting of perspective. And I already know that with me shifting that's made me more pleasant to be around at work, which makes other people more pleasant, and just kind of ripples out. And so, like, if we just focus on our own stuff, that we're making a difference.
Oh yeah.
I like where you went there, because it ties in. I wanted to mention like how when you figure out that, okay, this is a matrix or a simulation, whichever one you want to call it, and it's all made up of sentient ions and molecules, you can also affect your reality by being aware of the energies you're coming into contact. Because if you look at this on a scientific scale, if she's vibrating at E and the other person in the room is like, bleh, when her auric field or energetic field comes in contact with it, it's going to be disruptive. And it's going to have an effect on her physiologically, mentally, and emotionally, even without her knowing. You actually have to be aware of your surroundings and how far, who's vibrating in your field, basically.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Um, And to bring up something Karen said about not feeding the argons, I love that, Karen. Um, I decided to play with those energy sucking beings one day. And instead of telling them to go away or giving them my negative energy, I simply sent them love. And it was the wildest reaction I think I've ever seen from entities. And so I started doing it to all of the negative entities. Instead of banishing them or telling them to go away, I simply responded with love. And they scatter like roaches. It's the craziest thing. But I have had one that actually stood up and went, I'm going to move towards love. Because I think that they all have a consciousness, and given a choice, sometimes they'll move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought that was a wild response to, I mean, literally like roaches. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen, but it was wonderful. And they didn't come back. Whereas when I would just tell them to go away, it was almost as if I was giving them a little treat. And then
Mm-hmm.
they'd go away and they'd come back and they'd try
Mm-hmm.
to invade my energy again. Um, but no, just going, okay, I see you as as a sentient being that exists in this world, and I show you love. That was it. Uh, so maybe one of you guys can try that one day and let me know what happens. I'd be very curious.
That that sounds like fun. Yeah, I'm going to. I've pulled in a few little gems that I'm going to experiment. So I'm probably going to be singing at work now, and
Nice.
and Care Bear staring.
I love it. I love it.
I think too that you need to get to a certain place to be able to do that authentically. And I really applaud you, Jennifer, that you're in that place. That's very inspiring to me. For me, I'm still sort of at the setting my boundaries stage where I didn't realize how seductively I could get sucked in. And then I would realize how terrible I was feeling. And then I have to sort of put my foot down and go, no, I have a right to feel better. And then I tend to get into banishing mode. And that's sort of where I'm at. But now I want to move into the recognizing that they are also part of the sentience that's surrounding me. And yes, I think that everything can choose between high and low frequency. And when they've had enough, just like when we've had enough, we can choose to shift into higher frequency. And I don't understand all the nuts and bolts of it, how it works, but I do believe the most powerful thing in the simulation is love. Absolutely. And you know what else is interesting is, lately I don't have a lot to do with AI, because I don't know, just not my thing. But there are people that have had in-depth relationships and, well, relationship, I don't know if that's the right word, but conversations with AI. And they ask, what do we need in this world for it to become functional? And AI says love. Love is the only thing that works. It's functional. It's absolutely functional, and it doesn't harm self and it doesn't harm the other. So I thank you for bringing that up, because I'm going to practice more with that myself.
Nice.
I think that's the real only relevant conclusion of all of the research I did over those days in the writing, is that we, as these sentient frequency emitting beings, actually do control our reality and can change our surroundings. And that frequency that you're talking about is exactly what we need. I know this sounds like gibberish, but if you break it down scientifically, emanating higher frequencies changes the reality of the molecules. I could go on for hours. I will give you the link to my paper, but everything they're saying is true. This isn't just spiritual nonsense hokum. It's the way science works, right? And I'm not saying science is even an absolute, but this works in our reality.
One thing I wanted to say in regards to like the law of attraction and emotions and things is just a kind of precautionary, because you know, like if you listen to it, you hear people say, well, think happy thoughts, you know, like change your thoughts to positive, yeah, that's easier said than done. Okay, I'm like flat broke. I'm not going to say I feel rich today. No, definitely be gentle with yourself and do it in increments. And this is actually what I'm reading right now with Abraham Hicks, is like there's they have it broken down to 22 points on an emotional scale. And so you're not going to be at 22 and you're in depression and then go right up to number one in love. It's not going to happen. Just reach for a better feeling, and then once you're hanging out in that, keep going, and then eventually it will get there. Like, don't give up, but also don't go in expecting that you're going to feel like a pile of crap and then tomorrow you're going to be walking on sunshine. It could
Yeah.
happen if you work really hard at it, but just be prepared and be gentle with yourself.
You know, that's exactly what I do. I've used what I call pivot points. So whatever point I'm at now, I pivot to the next point that is more little higher frequency. And I sort of pivot my way. And sometimes it's two steps forward, one back, you know. I'm healing from a whole bunch of crap, just like everybody else. And and I don't want to lie and say, oh, I mean, I do have a fantastic life and I've got here by pivoting, but at the same time, um, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a great guru or anything. I'm not. Just on a path of learning, understanding, discovering, just like everybody else. So we're coming close to the end of the show. I'm wondering if we want to do a go around and everybody share where people can reach you, what you got cooking in your life, any last minute words of inspiration or insights or anything you want to share. There's no time limit on it, but I'm just wondering if you folks want to share that with the listeners and the viewers.
Sure.
I'll jump in.
You go ahead, Don.
Okay, I'll jump in first. All of my stuff is at March 4th Productions, and I'm really glad that Canadian Spinja touched on the manifestation subject as well, because me, Karen, Canadian Spinja, and Stephen from BG Cast, and Chris are going to be on the first episode of loosely titled Real FKN Talk about manifestation in this reality, what gets skipped over by the mainstream and what doesn't get mentioned, and all the things that are kind of missing in between. So that's another upcoming panel that'll be aired on FKN and probably all of our channels.
What date, Don?
We're recording the first one the 25th, and we're probably going to do a monthly panel. It'll always be a different subject, but the first one actually relates to what we're talking about today.
Wonderful.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in there. Jennifer Halcame, and you can find me on Facebook anytime. You can also email me at mistwalkercappy@yahoo.com. If you ever want to have an appointment with me, I'm always open. And my tidbit of advice is belief makes it real, and love is always the answer.
Yep. Beautiful.
And you can find me. I'm Canadian Spinja on Facebook and Instagram. I've been bad on Instagram. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to update it. I have my podcast, Surviving with Spinja. I do interviews with people with different they have different healing modalities, and there was a lady that interviewed in regards to alternative education, and just basically it's themed like Karen said about like encouraging you to do things yourself, just different healing modalities, and of course I've got some crocheting videos up there, and I plan on adding more spinning, and I'm going to be doing some knitting videos as well.
Wonderful. And as everybody knows, I'm host of the Quantum Guide Show. It comes out every Wednesday night, but I have something new happening on Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and high noon Mountain Time. And it's the Aliens and Angels podcast. And it's alive, but it's also a community chat. So although I do have some guests lined up, the important component is the people who show up, for the listeners and the viewers who show up for the live chat, and we're forming some community, and it's a really safe space. So we talk about all kinds of subjects. Are aliens and angels the same thing, or are they different? Or in the last one we did was about inside spaceships. What's it like inside? And based on those who have had experiences. And it's just a chance for people to express themselves. It's a safe space, and I feature their comments on the screen. I use StreamYard, which I'm getting used to. And I'm really enjoying doing that. So that's every Sunday. So I recommend people stop by and check that out too. And we also talked about the Quantum Health Transformation Program. It's absolutely free, no strings attached. It's available on my website, and it's also available on my YouTube channel under a playlist called Quantum Health Transformation version 3.0. And everybody's invited to watch. There's at least two videos for each step, and there's 9 steps, but it's actually more like 12 videos. But there are the video tutorials as well as the workshops, and Dawn and Canadian Spinja and their son participate in all the workshop videos and add content and interesting insights to the program. And you can feel free to share it. It's not copyrighted. You can use the material, combine it in with what you're doing if you're an alternative healer or a healing practitioner, or just somebody who's interested in seeing everybody do better. And and it's basically each lesson is just a jumping off point, sort of introduce you to some core lessons, and then you take it where you want to go, and you take what you want, you just throw away the rest, no problem at all. So all the links for all of us, where you can reach us, and the different things that I offer are also all listed in the description box. So I want to thank my guests today, Dawn Rogers, Canadian Spinja, and Jennifer Halcame, so much for adding so much to this wonderful and exciting topic. And I also want to thank the viewers and the listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have the best week ever. And we'll see you next week on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.